what I'm going to do is ask each one of you to say what you and your respective companies are up to in the field of content creation at this point in time. And Vidyuth is here. Starting with Tej.
So, what a coincidence it was, because Amita came to me a few days back and said, this panel is happening and it's all about creating stories, creating new genres, creating new players. The first thing I asked her was, क्या आपने sponsor तो नहीं किया है ना? Because it's exactly what we have been doing for the last 5 years. That Geo Studio was the first slate we just announced the 100 plus stories. In that we have some 12 web series. And the whole approach behind that was, number one is creating new genres, number two creating new stories, and creating new partners. When I say here it is players, but we believe more in partners, because we believe when partners grow, we will grow. So talking about what we are doing, so the 12 stories that we have created range from the veterans Bajaj directing Nana Patekar. So that's on the one side of spectrum. To the other, we have a book called UP65. It's one of the best-selling books in Hindi written by Nikhil Sachan. So that's based in Banaras. So right from that to the school, college life, which happens in Banaras. So that's the scale of shows that we are doing. We have, when I talk about partners, Nikhil Sachan, like I said, he was working in Kotak. He was working in Kotak as a vice president. He started writing a show for us, which is UP65. We really believe that he has the team to go forward. Now he has written 2 shows for us. Third show he is writing, and 1 movie also is written for us. So we like to grow with our partners. And the second thing is bringing new faces to OTT. Because we believe that same faces, you see here, you see there, you go to any platform, you see the same faces. So we are doing debut of Raftar. He's acting for the first time. Manish Paul, he is doing a debut with us. Like I said, Lana is doing the debut with us. Priyanka Tripathi, who's known more as a TV space, she's doing a very big show with us called Magic of Shiri. And the genre is also wide, right from political to youth to one of our biggest shows which Mrinalini and Banijay is producing. It's called Union. It's all Sardar Patel and VP Menon brought 565 princely states together as India, what we know of today. So that's a huge project we are doing. So what I wanted to say is, this is what we believe in, and this is what we walk the talk. And going forward also, we like to back new people. While we're working with big people also, so-called big people, but we want to back new talent, we want to back new production houses, and give them wings to fly.
Priya?
Hello everyone. Hi, hello everyone. So, I'm from Applause. We're about 5.5 years old now, and so all in all, we've made about a bit over 42-43 series, including multiple seasons, of course, upcoming seasons of the existing shows and originals. It's pretty much currently divided almost like 1/3 of adaptations of existing formats, book adaptations and original shows. So it's sort of split like, almost equally. One of the most, what we discuss all the time and collaborate with all our producers, directors, writers, pretty much everyone in the spectrum is really a collaborator. One of the main things that we're constantly focusing on is excellence of the product that we're creating at that moment. Because there's so much variety to everything that we're doing, and we're on all the platforms, we're collaborating, pretty much all platforms. We're also collaborating with at least some of the most world-known distributors of original formats. So there's so much material that we are sort of putting out, which we need to adapt to India, and then of course create original shows for India. We are constantly looking for excellence to every project that we are creating. That's really so, similar to what Teji said. We're very much focused on, like for example, we have a lot of season 2s coming up, which is Scam season 2, Avrodh season 2 and Dekhi season 2, which are like our, the shows on Sony Live. We have a lot of other shows that are coming up on Amazon, of course, and many others which are across platforms. So with everything, with different with new seasons and with originals, you have to have different lens every time that you're looking, and the market is changing really fast and constantly. So that's pretty much how we approach all our material. Largely being, we're like in the middle, we're not production house, we're not platform, of course. So we're like a studio, which is quite unique in its, content creation hub studio. We're like a, bespoke model where so the risk is higher in our case because we are sort of backing it completely before going to any platform. None of it is pre-commissioned unless of course it's a upcoming season or a next season of an existing show. So every original that we create is completely required to be backed, so the responsibility is very, very high because we put it out, we create, we get it written, we get it shot, we finish the product and then we take it out and we sort of farm it to the platform. So it's very important for us that we love what we're doing because we're going to have to live with it for every project for the 2 years that it takes to make them without, of course, I mean, with the hope and with the aim, but without the guarantee that, who's going to be the platform attached to it, which is very, very large as responsibility. So that actually is what keeps us driving.
Thank you. Mrinalini?
Hi everyone, I represent Banijay. I would like to say we produce everything from the Kapil Sharma show, which is India's GC favorite show, to the Night Manager. So the way we like to position ourselves is that for any idea that you may have, we're the kitchen for it. When it comes to unscripted, scripted, original ideas, formats, we are agnostic to everything, agnostic to language, agnostic to genre. As long as we like a story, as long as we like what we hear or what we want to develop, we go ahead and do it. Our portfolio sort of ranges across a variety of things, like I said, from Kapil Sharma to Night Manager. We are producing an original idea for Tejkarran, which is called the Union of India. We're doing season 2 of Dekhi for Priya here. And of course, our next slate looks very rich with formats and originals. We are coming out with the Indian adaptation of Suits and House and Monk. At the same time, we're also coming out with a very interesting original slate of ideas. And also what we are focusing on this year is that while the entire Hindi-speaking market is something we've been focused on, we're diving very heavily into the regional market because we really do think there's so much scope there and such beautiful stories. In fact, we just produced a very interesting series called The Fall for Hotstar Tamil, which was very exciting to do. We're doing season 2 of that now. We've also recently launched a Kannada soap for Star Suvarna called Rani. So we're investing very heavily in regional content. And along with that, we're also trying to see if there is a way to bring all Indian creators who are in different parts of the world and bring them to India to create stories which resonate here to the Indian audience, but also have the potential to reach a global audience. So yeah, that's pretty much us, and that's what we're focusing on.
Thank you. And Vaibhav?
Hello everyone, I'm Vaibhav from Victor Tango, and like Mrinalini just said, we are also a kitchen for everything ranging from a reality show to a scripted series. It's just that we are probably not as big as them. And so you can call us boutique, and we became producers pretty much because we love to hire ourselves as writers and creators. And one of our last releases was this show called Mukhbir, the story of a spy on Z5. And previous to that, a non-scripted series called Times of Music on MX Player, which was really applauded and also won a Filmmaker for Best Non-Fiction. One of the things that keeps us in the business is exploring different kind of stories, and we I mean, back of the house, the joke is that we don't really like to repeat, the kind of story that has been told once. And while it might sound a little counterproductive to what my peers just said, that there are seasons to be made out of every franchise, but if you consider that as an extension of what you're making, the next kind of story, if it is different, which is also in line with what we're going to talk about today in terms of exploring new frontiers, new narratives, new ideas and new genres, I would pretty much say that's what keeps us in the business. And with there's a little bit of a gloom that one can sense in the business in terms of the budgets being slashed and a lot of ambiguous communication about mergers and acquisitions and lack of clarity. But still, I think most of us have kind of dug our heels in, and we are committed to telling newer stories, push the frontiers, and yeah. One of the things I want to talk about while everybody was touching upon what is there in the pipeline, we have a couple of very interesting new approaches, as I would like to put it, in the pipeline. We recently tied up with a very popular news platform called News Laundry to dive into stories that they have covered over the years. These stories come with great research, great boots on the ground touch of the stories in terms of they're journalists who are very hands-on, very empathetic, and first-hand information about the series. So we are doing series adaptations of some of those stories, and we're really excited about bringing those to people like Tej very soon. Yeah, so that's more about us. Yeah.
Thanks, Vaibhav. And Piyush?
Hi, I'm Piyush Shah. I'm an indie filmmaker. I've written and directed 3 films, and I've sort of an anomaly in the sense that I'm also an author of crime fiction novels, and I've written 5 novels and other pieces of work, 9 pieces of work. 7 of them are in adaptation. Many of them have been already adapted on Applause, for example, Chuck Review, and Applause also has acquired other books of mine and various other companies. But sometime a couple of years back, we realized that there was a dearth of stories, and everybody was looking for stories, and only from and they were reaching out to literature. So for authors, the journey of writing a story and then getting it published is a 1.5 to 2 year process. So being an author myself and having gone through that journey, I started focusing and identifying authors and established and emerging authors, and started focusing on stories which they haven't told as yet in published form. And we started sourcing stories like that from various authors, and we started developing them for content. And then we established a company called Talkative Content Creators, which is working with new and emerging authors to work on their stories and shape them for the screen right from the inception. And that's our focus and our USP, and that's perhaps why I'm out here.
Thanks. Vidyuth?
Hi, my name is Vidyuth Bhandary. I'm the studio head for DICE. DICE is the premium studio for a long-form studio for Pocket Aces. Our journey has been very different to what everyone's just spoke out here. We started way back in 2015 making video content for young adults or young aliens, as they were called. This is way before most of the OTT platforms actually came into India. In 2016, we made a show which was loved by everyone called Little Things. It was loved so much that Netflix actually commissioned us for season 2, 3, and 4. That's one of the strengths of DICE Media, is that pretty much most of the shows which we do pretty much go into multiple seasons, and I think almost all the shows which we've done, be it What the Folks, which have done 4 seasons, Adulting, which is 3 seasons, Crushed, which is a new show which we're doing with Mini TV, is also already gone into the 4th season now. So that's something which we really believe, if the content is good, then the viewers will want more. We continue making shows. We are a digital first company. We continue making shows for our YouTube channel, which is Dice Media, and also make shows for OTT platforms. We are currently, as we speak, pretty much working with all platforms. We've got slate, considering we're a digital first company, we've got slate deals with most of the OTT platforms. It's a good time to be in the digital business. And as we speak, we have 3 shows in post-production, final stages, and they should all be dropped on 3 different OTT platforms in the next 2 months. Thank you.
So Vaibhav mentioned that we'll talk about the future and innovations, etc. But before we come to that, let's look at learnings. What can we learn from the wide world of international programming and best practices in terms of content creation that exist internationally? And it's not about validation, because with a population of 1.4 billion, we don't need validation from anyone. But we can make the content much better. So I'd like to start with, and this, we don't need to go round robin because it becomes very boring. Anyone wants to jump in, interrupt, feel free. Let's start with Vidyuth. Vidyuth, you said one of your shows is popular in what seems like the most unlikeliest of places?
Okay. Can you guys hear me? Sorry. Yeah. So it was a funny incident. We were just talking. Actually, we were going to shoot the season 4 of Little Things, and we wanted to actually shoot it in Poland. So the Poland film commissioner had come down, and we wanted to meet and wanted to speak to them, explain what the show is about, and ask for permissions. So while we were speaking to them and explaining the show, even before I started explaining the show, the first question was, will Dhruv and Kavya get married this season? So I was a little taken back, and I said, have you seen the show? He says, yes, it's my favorite show on Netflix. And it's not only my favorite show, I've actually recommended it to all my friends, and we pretty much, everyone loves watching it. So I think that's just the power of good content, good writing, which travels easily. This was by accident, obviously, it wasn't planned. But however, as we speak, we do have a couple of shows which are going to be made for the Indian audience, and we're particularly writing it in such a way that the international audience will also watch it.
So, can you, staying with you, can you tell us how that actually translates into what you tell your writers?
It's actually the subject. The subject, the 2 shows which we're writing, the subject is such it will travel. There is a lot of interest with respect to India history. This show is a little about music and people, but at the end of it, it is a human story. So, and it's about human emotion. So it's something which they will learn about India, but it's a story which will work everywhere. And so the writers have also been told that just ensure that you write it in such a way that it will work for both the audiences, so keep that into consideration.
Tej?
So I want to add something to Vidyuth. See, we are in India, and India is a very big country, as we all know. So what we want to do is very, very clearly, we want to make an Indian Bharat, we want to make for India and Bharat, and if the international audience likes it, that's fine. But the thing is, there is a huge audience out there that's not tapped. You don't have tier 2, tier 3, tier 1 also, very few people are watching. The penetration right now is minuscule. we need to first tap the Indian audience and then talk about international. First, I want my shows, everyone having a Jio SIM or an Airtel SIM or a Vodafone SIM should see my show. And then if I get those kind of numbers on my show, then if international sees it's fine, otherwise I'm getting all my numbers from India. So the show that we are making Union, again, it's written for India, it is written for the Indian audience, we are having an international production, that's a separate thing. But if I even ask me, am I writing for international audience? No. I'm writing for my audience to first like it, and if then it travels, it's fine. But I want India first, I want people to see my content, and then probably international can happen. That's a different way of thinking.
Great. Anyone else wants to jump in? Rina?
I think Tej has pretty much summed it up. That's one filter we also apply, that it needs to work for our audience first. And because we're making it for our audience, and he's absolutely right that I think the people here and all of us, we are not the target audience. Technically, we're already sitting on subscriptions of every platform. But how do you penetrate that piece of the market which really wants to watch content, but maybe there's nothing for them out there? So you tap the Indian audience first, and I think that, like he said, Union of India is a story that we need to know about, and we really do believe that it is a story that will interest the international audiences as well. But the filter always is India first, and then we can see who else sort of gets interested in wanting to watch these stories.
I think we all agreed that it's India first. My question specifically was, what can we learn to make these stories better for an Indian audience? Priya?
We work constantly with adapting materials from across the world, of various languages, various nationalities, and we're proud to say a lot of it has penetrated at least the audience that we hope it would, to the extent that it has, brought eyeballs to the show. Emotion really travels. That is one of the biggest learnings from international, Indian. It's the universality of emotion, the universality of relationships. They're pretty much the same everywhere around the world, and you can adapt something that is Russian or Norwegian or American or anywhere into India, as long as you have like a few universal emotions that that you can tap into. That you can definitely create relationships, you can create characters, and of course, you have to be able to adapt the ethos of the story or the plot, the world itself into India. But if we're able to adapt, I'm sure there will be a time when we're being adapted. Around the world. Learning goes round, right? The glue is sort of, it's going to go around what's coming around. So that's what eventually one hopes and wishes will happen. It hasn't happened yet. But it will, because if universal emotion is traveling to India, it's going to travel back from India to the world. So that's the biggest learning that we have, considering, and to make the 20 adaptations that we've made, we've had to watch maybe 60 to know how many of these are adaptable, how many of these will travel, how many of these will relate. That's really one of the biggest learnings that I think we've got from creating adapted shows, and therefore universal stories.
So I totally agree with everybody. I just want to add that, if you observe the shows or movies or whatever which have traveled across the world, either from abroad to India or from India to the recent successes of RRR, etc., or even within India, South films, now being very accepted across the country, they always push the envelope much beyond the existing. You take a Squid Games, or you take a Money Heist or something. They push the envelope much beyond the normal, and I think that is the key. Whether it'll travel within the country or our own India Bharat zone, or around us, the diaspora, but to make it travel further, you need to push that envelope, and we have seen that happening in the recent past. And I think there's a learning out there which which we must take and work towards in our storytelling. And I would urge everybody to kind of focus on that.
In fact, I'd like to add something here to what Priya said, that the emotion travels. When we did Night Manager, when we did the Indian adaptation of Night Manager, very few people knew, including a lot of people in our circles, that it was a John Le Carre adaptation and it was a very big hit show in the UK. The audience didn't know that this was an adaptation, right? It was just a story they came in for, because they came in for Anil Kapoor, they came in for Aditya Roy Kapoor, and they came in for the story that it was. And while we were adapting it, we made very interesting decisions. Like, I don't know if a lot of you have seen it, but in terms of there's a death that happens in the series, and instead of making an elder person die, we made a child die. That piece was a pivotal piece of what we did when we were adapting it, because we were spending so much time writing. And when people saw episode 1, 2 and 3, and that's what the writers and the creators did very well, they loved that. In fact, the international creators of Night Manager, they called us and said, we couldn't believe you changed that part, it was so great. So I think it is about stories, it is about characters. The deeper we get into our characters and the deeper we get their emotion to sort of work for our audience, I think that's a big learning, because the West spends a lot of time developing characters. If your writing on the characters is strong, I think there's very little margin to go wrong.
So, while on the learning, and some of you have touched on this already, how about learning from within our country? It's a vast country. God knows how many, some 30 official languages, 16,000 dialects, and myriad cultures. So, I think the flavor of this season, everyone is saying South, etc. But it's not just South. I mean, if you look just a couple of years ago, Tabbar, Ajit Pal Singh's Tabbar on Sony Live, that was fantastic. And that was one of Variety's top 5 shows worldwide. Not just from Indian top 5 shows, Variety's worldwide, from across the world. So before we get to the innovation part, which I know is what everyone is waiting for, very quickly, what can we learn from within our own different cultures? Because here we are sitting in Mumbai, but there are so many production centers out there. Vaibhav?
So, yeah, it's actually an extension of this discussion that we just had. So, we need emotion to conquer Bharat, which is largely untapped, especially when we look at it from the OTT lens. But where does the emotion come from? A lot of untapped folklore is one thing. You will see that regional literature leans a lot on folklore, but that mostly doesn't reach BKC. And we are cooking our stories in a universe which kind of falls a little away from that. So I think that's where a good formula or a good approach to conquer Bharat through emotion is, because those are things that will resonate with us in a very, very fundamental kind of level. That's one thing. The other thing is so much diversity in this country. Mostly it has been served entertainment through the lowest common denominator lens. Maybe this is the time when we start looking at questioning the universal tropes or stereotypes. It's already happening in literature, but there are a lot of masterpieces that we see coming out of the literature space where they are going against the flow a little bit. That could be another way of doing it. And one of the other things that I very strongly believe is when we look at some of the most successful genres around the world, can we sometimes question them? It often comes to my mind that every time we are talking about a dystopian show, everybody has a point of view about dystopian shows. But nobody has ever discussed, why does dystopia always need to be, or post-apocalypse always need to be so dark and grim? Is it not possible that we see a dystopian world where everybody is more honest, more loving, more human, or whatever? Can we question those stereotypes and maybe, dig something out that that could speak to the Bharat and create a new emotion that has not been touched upon. So I know these things belong more in a writer's room, but I think a lot of us are connected, in many ways with that process. So yeah, that would be my 2 bit to that.
So, in the morning, someone spoke about the notorious Bandra to Andheri writers' room process. So, moving beyond that and going back to my previous question, what can we learn from the mini Indias which are outside of the Mumbai creation culture?
So I want to add here, Naman. You see, in the previous Avatar, when I headed Z5, we used to make content in different languages, and that was the first time when we really started out making web series in different languages. So we made in Bengali, we made in Marathi, we made Hindi. What one thing we noticed was, if you make a story for a Marathi audience, it might not appeal to someone in the north. If we making that Bengali series, it might not appeal to someone in Maharashtra. So what we did, we started making stories which are integral to that part of India. Going through the literature, like Vaibhav said, going through the literature. Again, we had a big issue in Marathi. We had a big issue in Bengali, and Vaibhav knows it. We have had the chat earlier. There were no writers who could write long format because they used to think एक story है, उसको आप बीच में 5 बार divide कर दो, 5 episode बन गए. So we are progressing there. From a regional perspective, if you say it's easy to make, no, it's not easy to make. We have to change the mentality of the writers to write for long form. It's a different game altogether. Binge watching or episodic, it's a completely different game. We just can't put 5 stops in between the story and make it into 5 episodes. So yes, we are learning from regional. We are taking literature. We are adapting. Our next slate will have a lot of them, much more of them, because we have already signed those stuff. So yes, we need to learn from literature. We have to adapt, but we also have to give wings to the regional writers to ensure that they write long format. Otherwise, we will try. That's a separate story, we will try. But वो skill set lana is also a very important thing, which some years back didn't exist. Now people are more exposed to Hindi, more exposed to international, so they're learning. In the last 1.5 years, I've seen regional language. We're doing Bhojpuri. So we have seen now they are much more aware of how to start an episode, how to end an episode, what should be the episodic arc, what should be the longer arc. So yes, learning is happening, but we have to go down to our roots and we have to see what all is there in Indian literature and dig it all out.
Anyone else wants to jump in on this? Yeah. Vidyuth?
No, not really. I just, basically while you were saying writers from Bandra to Andheri, it's while we are doing that, like for example, we did a extremely heartwarming show called Ghar Wapsi on Hotstar. It was based out of Indore. The whole thing is that you need to get your writers from there. You need to get your crew from there. We're doing a South Indian show which is called Chiku. Again, the entire crew, writing, actors, everyone's from there. So you have to make it more authentic. And luckily with Bombay, a lot of people from outside states are available here, or we'll have to bring them out here. But agreed with you have to get them authentic.
All the writers have to go to other parts of India and live those experiences. Like, for example, Charudat Acharya, Aranyak was based on an experience he had on holiday while in the hills. And it's an absolutely wonderful show, and now season 2 is coming out. And he's a good example. He stays on the edge of Andheri. Now coming to innovation and how to reach out to this vast, diverse audience market of ours. Let's start with Piyush. Because Piyush, you mentioned that you are looking for original stories, and I know for a fact that. And you said yourself that 7 of your 9 pieces of work are in adaptation as we speak, right? So I know for a fact that most of the major streamers if they have a published piece of work, not just in India, anywhere in the world, if they see a book, it's published by Piyush Jha, okay, someone has believed in it, so it's a safety net for them. So how do you deal with this very innovative practice of asking for a completely new story that's unpublished?
Yeah, so that's right. So it's a uphill task, and we have to convince people. But I think with a little bit of because I have written some work and that has been adapted, and I am a filmmaker also. I bring I sort of say that this is something which can really travel, and let's look at it. And I think that little barrier is broken because of that. But believe me, it's an uphill task. Trying to interest people in stories which are still imagined and not yet out there in a published form. It is there, but it's not something which has not been done. I mean, I'm sure everybody has kind of imagined stories and written them without having a published book. But you're right, in the past few years, there's been a kind of a approach of just acquiring the book and getting it adapted, but we're trying to break that. And we believe that authors, long form, they are very good with long form. They've got an expertise out there, and we're trying to just kind of mold their work to the screen where those breaks, etc. are there. But I think we're also trying to get a new kind of a form of show which can push the envelope. Like, I just want to give an example. The Wire is a very, everybody knows The Wire, right? That was approached in form of a visual novel. And it's like one of the greatest shows. I mean, it's always ranked among the top 10 in one of the greatest shows. But if you look at the show and you actually look at the beats of the show, it's a novel. It's a book. And the writers, I studied that, the writer's approach was that it was a visual novel. And I think those are the kind of things which we have to attempt to push the envelope. And if we can do that, and we're trying, and we have some measure of success, I think we'll see newer and newer kinds of formats coming out there. And we'll all be much the better for it, I guess.
And Vaibhav, you mentioned, I loved what you said about dystopia. And speaking of which, people don't look at the humor in Neil Gaiman. He's one of the funniest writers ever, but people choose to focus on the dystopian part of it. So, in terms of new genres, etc., how are you innovating, and what can you share with us about new forms and innovation?
So, it's definitely a very long-term journey. There are no quick fixes, there are no formulaic approaches. But the first and very important step is acknowledgement of the fact that you are doing a few things for your business as usual, which needs to convert in the next 2 quarters and needs to keep the lights on. And then also be committed to a long-term objective and keep working towards it. And pick up a few beliefs.
Sorry.
A few beliefs. You can't chase everything, but do definitely have a clearly defined set of beliefs. We like to believe that if you have a voice as a storyteller, you might as well make that voice count and address a few things that need addressing. For example, at this point in time, all of us are aware of the global issue of climate change and all these kind of things. The West has already started kind of accepting cli-fi, as they call it, climate fiction, as a legit genre. We don't see much of that happening. Few and far between, you might find some examples. I think this is a time when we start working on something like that. Maybe 2 years from now, platforms, the audience, they're going to be ready for it. You need to be ready with something at that point. I mean, that much time it takes, to build something strong enough that will have a long life. So that's one thing. Finding your voice and addressing some things that need to be addressed. Sorry. Again, mental health and a lot of other issues that need to be spoken about. The other thing is how we like to look at this. We've always been trained or told that fiction or entertainment is a mirror to who we are, right? If we focus 50% of our energy in capturing who we could be, is a very, very good key to innovation. How we would like to see things to be, how we would like to see society to be, how we would like smaller units of the society to be, communities to be, is again something. So we're doing some stuff in that direction as well. And last but not the least, this is, I call it a cheat sheet in a way, but mashups sometimes can surprise you. Take two genres, and boom, you've got something really nice and fresh and interesting emerging. So yeah, that's our approach towards that. We'll have something to talk about that very soon. Yeah.
And just want to quickly move to Priya on the same question. Now, from an Applause original content commissioning point of view, to take two recent examples, The Rapist is a completely original piece of work, so is Regato. Now, but both of these are by well-known people, Aparna Sen and Nandita Das. So, how do you approach completely new ideas from people who are completely new themselves?
At Applause, we are actually honestly listening to stories and pitches from everybody. We're non-discriminatory in that sense because we do receive a lot of material. Sometimes there's just, the time is just not enough. But there's a team that actually goes through all the material, all the pitches that we receive. And anything that stands out is, the filters really are, very similar to what Vaibhav was saying. You're looking to, push the envelope, largely scratch an itch. There's, like everybody said, we have so many Indias in India. We have the reach is, the value in the reach of material is always going to stand out. And of course, as technology improves, more people will have data, more people will, have access. That's the upside. And the responsibility of that upside is to be able to have an itch that can scratch every itch. Because everybody is going to, want a certain kind of material. And therefore, there are that many more writers. I'm not entirely in agreement with we don't have good writers. I think we do. A lot of people, what you mentioned about not having or people needing entire published work to be able to, approve or take something forward or green light it. Why not? Honestly, there's a lot at stake. So it's not necessarily maybe published, but just a good enough Bible. Something where somebody's thought everything through, because that just means that you have something very definitive to say, like what Vaibhav was saying. So at Applause, to answer your question, we're actually listening to pitches and meeting people who, it's their first pitch. Not just their first material, but sometimes even their first pitch. So we're not really discriminating in that sense, but then of course one has to attach some sort of value to it in terms of both commercial and, the viability of making, the product, because like I said, we greenlight it before anything else or before anyone else enters it. So then either you have a director or you have an actor or you have something that gets attached to that, a person or a crew or maybe a location. Something that gets attached to that, which, sort of gives it that extra push. But we don't stop from listening to stories from anybody. You took Aparna's and Nandita's examples, but there are a lot of all our other shows which are really written by first-time writers. So we're really cool with that actually. Very open to that in fact.
And Mrinalini, you briefly mentioned Banijay's upcoming original slate. So, are you actively looking for innovation in the new slate as well?
Naman, we're always looking to innovate. In fact, we did a really interesting series for Netflix called Ranveer vs. Wild, which was an interactive adventure reality series. But it was approached from a scripted perspective because I had to write an entire screenplay out of it. I had to put sort of choices into it. But what was very interesting to me about innovation was that some people absolutely loved it. And my mom turned around and told me, "Why are you making me work?" I was blown, She was like, "Why are you making me choose?" I sat down with my cup of tea to watch it. I really wanted to watch Ranveer and Bear Grylls, but why are you making me choose an option, And that sort of really made me feel like, wow, this was my innovation, and we decided to do this as an interactive sort of piece. And you keep thinking, there's always a certain part of the audience that does not agree with what you're innovating with. So I think it's a very tricky line. But yes, like for our upcoming slate, there are multiple things we're trying. Like there is a very interesting female spy thriller, very pulpy spy thriller set in the 1980s that we're doing, but it's based on plausible deniability, where when you watch it, you will see every event as it happened in history, but this is a sort of alternate view to that event. So you'll question it and be like, did this really happen or did this not happen? And this was one of the endeavors we took, because when we made Night Manager, we created a very male, very, very male-centric spy world. So in the modern day age where there was technology and there's helicopters and there's all these things, so we wanted to create a different space for the women world, where we went very period, very kitschy, very pulpy. So that's one of the innovations that we are coming out with. And, but yeah, we're always looking for any sort of innovation anyone may have, because we feel because we have the ability to do non-scripted stuff, because we have the ability to do docus, because we have the ability to do scripted, anything that we remotely like as a story or a concept, I would say, we try to see if we can make it in either of the three, ways available to us. But always looking for anything that is interesting and innovative.
And Vidyuth, let's talk about formats a bit. As a digital-first company, are you looking at addressing the large, youth population via different formats, different platforms? As you said, digital first. The world is your oyster. You can do anything what you please. So, can you share any examples of in different formats where you are innovating?
Yeah. So one is right next door. So like Piyush was saying, so Piyush is an expert in his field. Piyush knows his field in and out. So there's a book which he's written, and he's come to us. And what we are working together is sort of put our expertise and put the entire digital filter, put the young adults filter on top of it. And together we thought that's the plan, how we want to pitch the book.
One sec, I just want to clarify. It's still not yet a book.
Pitch the, yeah. So that's one thing. So we are using our expertise, working with other partners, because we also want to grow beyond just making slice of life and young adult shows. Plus, we also are innovating in terms of we're choosing the right type of shows. Like we're doing an Indian adaptation of a very popular show called Jain the Virgin, which is an international show, and that should get dropped in a couple of months when moved. So it's almost ready. So that's there. So we are choosing formats accordingly. We are writing accordingly. We're choosing partners accordingly and putting our own filters on top of it to give it that shine.
And before we open it to the audience, I want to ask a loaded question to everyone, which is, obviously, apart from you, Tej, none of you operate platforms, right? And the platforms are all about subscriptions. And I think someone mentioned, I think you mentioned penetration. The penetration is quite low. So, and I know for a fact that people are calling for, that streamers are calling for broad-based approaches to content, so that, it's one size fits all, but one size cannot fit all in this country. So, does that affect your content creation in any way, the need for the platforms to have more subscribers, and because the subscribers are driven completely by the content that you create. Vaibhav, do you want to go first?
So yeah, that's a tricky one. So okay, I'll come clean. First of all, most of the discussions that I've had, most of the briefs that I've been getting, have been very, very cognizant of the elephant that we are, addressing over here. That if it is something that needs to be at a certain kind of a budget, if it needs to be seen by more people, if it creates a world that can keep recurring, what people are calling as the TV plus, model, there's a reason for it, and that's a legit business that is going to emerge much more stronger in the next couple of years, is what I feel. So that's the whole AWOD kind of a piece. In the SWOT space, maybe we don't operate with those kind of volumes as Applause and Geo and Banijay operate at, but we always get entry to a discussion totally credit to the strength and potency of the idea. I don't think we've ever been shown the door because subscription or because, the kind of money we're asking for so far. So if that's the problem they are facing right now, I would like to be there, to be honest. But I hope that never happens,
Yeah, unless anyone else wants to come in, I think we'll have to wrap up, but we can take at least one question from the audience.
Yeah, one for sure. Yeah.
Okay, I've been seeing one hand that's been up in that corner. If we can take that
Yes, we
gentleman.
can also spot it as well. Can we quickly get a mic pass to the gentleman out there? Hi, do you mind telling your name for the time being? What's your name? Vichitra. Rajat. Second time. Rajat, thank you.
Okay, Rajat, your
It's a
mic is
Vichitra
on,
way
sorry.
of me asking his name, sorry. Oh my god, my humor. Apologies. It's content. Yeah.
Yeah, hi to the panel. So between all the discussions from various platforms, yourselves as production house, I think nobody's talking about the cast, location, or the visuals of film being the the main pain point. It's the writing, right? Now, Mrinalini was saying earlier that that the West really works on its characters. A part of that reason is that in the West, a production house can raise funding purely for the development stage, when they're just writing stories, ideas, full scripts, but they don't know whether those will convert into a film or not. The investor, the party who's funding is taking a bet on, okay, let's see these 5 writers, 10 different scripts written, let's see what gets sold from that. Now in India, usually the writer will finish a story or finish an idea and then come and pitch it to you, right? At that stage, if he sells, he makes money, but he's not incentivized to keep writing till something doesn't sell, right? So are you creating initiatives to purely engage and fund the writing, programs and things like that? What are your thoughts on those fronts? Yeah.
In short, is there a development fund?
So this is the basic thing that we do. So all the time, anyone comes with at least a one pager, you need to have at least one page in place. If you have one page in place, we'll go through it, we'll put the money behind it and we'll develop it. That's what we are for, to put the money and develop the content that we believe. It's always we believe, right? It's a personal call also. That we believe that will fly. And yes, we are doing that for first-time writers, we are doing that for novel writers, we are doing that for big writers. That's a basic thing that any one of us does.
We're all doing that. There are so many models, but the first check always comes from us. If we believe in the idea, we put it on the table, and not because we can, but because we understand that there is a need to empower great stories and great writers. So we have never shied away from investing into our stories, and even with all our partners, like whether it's a studio you're working with or a platform you're working with or whoever you're working with, we are very happy to collaborate, contribute in any way possible, because none of this is a one-man show. It requires a lot of us to make it. So yeah, I think we are all sitting here putting a lot of money behind all the ideas and writers and everybody.
at Dice Media, at any moment of time, we have about minimum to 15 to 20 shows in terms which are pretty much written in various stages. A minimum is a Bible. Otherwise, there are some shows where we've actually done the screenplay of all the 6 episodes or 8 episodes, and then we pretty much take it to the platform. So that's an investment which we've done on our end, because we also know the moment the platform says yes, then we pretty much have to, we would want to get on the floor as fast as possible. And we also have the other advantage of, there are some shows, if it doesn't get picked up, we'll put it on our own YouTube channel. So we also do that.
Just to give you one more example, since I'm on the other side over here, we have got an approved funding and development on one paragraph, just one paragraph presented, and we've got development on that. So it depends on what that paragraph contains. So don't worry about that, that'll happen. You just have to make sure you have those words. So thank you so much, this is totally
I think Priya wants to add something.
It's just, I'm just adding to what everyone is saying. The very fact that not everything you work on gets made means you have invested in the development of that because we're all working on multiple, everybody, we're all at Applause also, and of course everyone here is working on multiple things at the same time with different collaborators on every show, film, animation, non-fiction, whatever we're doing. But not everything gets made, and for no fault of any one person on that, sometimes it just doesn't see the day, the light of day. That does mean that there's a lot of investment going into development.
To keep writing. That's the most
Which is why not, everything, some things just, kuch ghode nikal jate hain. So it's like that.
Great, that's all we have time for. Thank you, all of you, for your insights. Thank you, and thank you for being here.